I told my mom that my brother had hit me, expecting support, but she blamed me instead, asking what I did to make him angry. He's never hurt anyone else. The kitchen light was still on when I came downstairs at 11:30, the single bulb above the sink throwing long shadows across the linoleum. Mom stood at the counter in her faded blue robe, slicing apples for tomorrow's lunchboxes with the same steady rhythm she'd used since we were small. I hesitated on the bottom step, one hand on the banister, the other cradling my left cheek, where the skin still burned under my fingertips. The sting had dulled to a deep throb, but every time I swallowed, I could feel the inside of my mouth where my teeth had cut the lining. I hadn't cried yet, not really. Shock had kept the tears locked somewhere high in my chest, but now, seeing her familiar silhouette, they threatened to spill. Mom? My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. She didn't turn right away. The knife paused mid-slice, then resumed. You're up late, Zara. I stepped fully into the light. A deal hit me. The words landed flat between us. She set the knife down carefully, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and finally looked at me. Her eyes flicked to the red mark blooming across my cheekbone, then back to my face. No gasp, no immediate rush to hug me. Just a long, measuring stare. What happened? She asked, tone even, almost conversational. I told her, halting at first, then faster. How he'd been arguing over the remote again. How he'd called me selfish for wanting to watch my show instead of his football highlights. How I'd snapped back that he always got his way because he was the boy, and the oldest, and everyone bent for him. How he'd stood up so fast the coffee table rattled. How his open palm had cracked across my face before I even registered the movement. He's never done that before. I finished, voice trembling now. Never hit me. Not once. Mom nodded slowly, as though filing each detail away. She crossed to the freezer, pulled out a bag of frozen peas, wrapped it in the same dish towel, and handed it to me. Hold this on your face. It'll keep the swelling down. I pressed the cold bundle to my cheek, grateful for the numbing bite, waiting for the next part, the anger on my behalf, the promise to talk to him, the reassurance that this was not my fault. Instead, she leaned against the counter, arms folded. What did you say to him exactly? I blinked. What? Before he hit you, what did you say? The question felt like a second slap, sharper because it came from her. I told you, I said. He always gets his way because he's the boy. Zara. Her voice cut through mine, calm but edged. You know how he gets when people push him too far. He's quiet. He keeps everything inside, and then one thing tips it over. So what did you push? My mouth opened, closed. The peas suddenly felt heavier against my skin. I didn't push him to hit me. No one's saying you deserve to be hit. She said it like she was reciting a line from a parenting book. But you're not a little girl anymore. You're 16. Words have weight. You've always known how to find the exact thing that hurts him most. Maybe this time you found it. I stared at her. You're blaming me. I'm asking what happened before the hand landed. That's all. He picked up the knife again, resumed slicing apples as though the conversation were finished. Each cut was precise, deliberate. He's never hurt anyone else, I whispered. Exactly. She didn't look up. So whatever you said tonight was different, strong enough to break the pattern. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed. I stood there, holding frozen peas to my face, feeling the cold seep into my palm, while something hotter and more dangerous uncoiled behind my ribs. Mom finished the apples, slid them into a container, snapped the lid shut. Go to bed, Zara. We'll talk more in the morning when everyone's calmer. She didn't hug me, didn't kiss my forehead, didn't even meet my eyes again. I turned and climbed the stairs, slowly, each step heavier than the last. In my room, I closed the door softly so it wouldn't wake anyone, then sank onto the edge of my bed. The peas were already thawing against my cheek. I let them drop to the carpet. For the first time since the slap, the tears came. Not loud sobs, but quiet, burning tracks down my face. They tasted like salt and disbelief. Downstairs, I could hear the faint clink of dishes being put away, the soft shuffle of Mom's slippers as she moved through her nighttime routine. Normal sounds. Ordinary sounds. As though nothing had changed, but everything had. The boy who'd never raised a hand to anyone had raised one to me. And the woman who was supposed to protect us both had looked at the bruise and asked what I'd done to earn it. I lay back on my pillow, staring at the glow in the dark stars stuck to the ceiling since I was 8. They'd faded over the years, barely visible now unless the room was completely dark. Tonight, they looked almost bright against the black. I didn't sleep. I waited for morning, for the moment Adele would come downstairs, for the moment Mom would look at him and see the same thing I saw, a line crossed that could never be uncrossed. I kept waiting. The house stayed quiet, and somewhere in the long hours before dawn, I understood that the real bruise wasn't the one on my face. It was the one forming deeper, where trust used to live. Morning light came through the curtains in thin, pale strips, turning the room gray instead of black. I hadn't slept more than an hour in fits. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the slap again. The sharp crack, the heat blooming across my cheek, the stunned silence that followed. My face felt tight now, swollen on one side, the skin hot and tender when I touched it. I avoided the mirror on my closet door. Downstairs, the house was already moving in its usual way. The clatter of cereal bowls, Dad's low voice reading headlines from his phone, Adil's footsteps heavy on the stairs as he came down for breakfast. I stayed in bed until the sounds quieted, until I heard the front door open and close, Dad leaving for work, Adele heading to his morning classes at the community college. Only then did I pull on a hoodie, hood up to hide most of my face, and go downstairs. Mom was at the sink rinsing dishes. Back to me. She didn't turn when I entered. Sit, she said. I made tea. A mug waited on the table, steam curling up. I sat without speaking, wrapped my hands around the warmth, but didn't drink. The silence stretched until it felt like another wall between us. Finally, she dried her hands, turned, and looked at me properly for the first time since last night. Her gaze lingered on the bruised purple now at the edges, darker in the center. Something flickered in her expression, quick and gone before I could name it. Regret? Worry? It vanished too fast. How does it feel? She asked. Hurts, I said flatly. Looks worse than it is. She nodded, pulled out the chair opposite me, and sat. Adil left early, said he had a group project. I waited for more, for her to say she'd spoken to him, that she'd told him it was unacceptable, that she'd made him apologize. Nothing came. You didn't talk to him? I asked. Not yet. He was quiet this morning. Didn't eat much. I think he feels bad. He feels bad? The words came out sharper than I meant. He hit me, Mom. Hard. And you think he feels bad? She sighed, the sound long and tired. Zara, he's not a violent person. You know that. He's never raised a hand to anyone. Not his friends, not his cousins, not even when kids teased him in school. This isn't who he is. It is now. I touched my cheek lightly. This is who he is when he's angry enough. Mom leaned forward, elbows on the table, which is why I need to understand what pushed him there. You two fight all the time. Over the TV, over the car, over who gets the last piece of naan. Words fly, but hands? Never. So what was different last night? The question again. The same one from the kitchen at midnight. It landed heavier in daylight. I told you what I said, that he always gets his way because he's the boy. She shook her head. There's more. You don't just say that once and get a slap. You've said versions of it before? Joking? Serious? In passing? He's never reacted like this. So what else? I stared at her. You're interrogating me. Like I'm the one who did something wrong. I'm trying to understand the whole picture so I can fix it. Fix it? My voice rose despite myself. There's nothing to fix on my end. He hit me. That's the picture. That's the whole thing. Mom's mouth tightened. Don't raise your voice. I'm not your enemy. Then stop acting like I am. I pushed back from the table, chair scraping loud against the floor. You're supposed to be on my side. You're supposed to say no one lays a hand on my daughter. Not what did you do to deserve it. Her eyes flashed. Anger maybe, or hurt. I never said you deserved it. Stop twisting my words. You're twisting mine. I told you what happened. You asked what I did to make him angry. That's blaming me. She stood too, slowly, like the weight of the conversation was pressing her down. I'm blaming the situation, both of you. You provoke, he explodes. And now we have a bruise and a broken trust in this house. I have to talk to him, yes. But I also have to talk to you. Because if you keep poking at the same sore spot, knowing how sensitive he is about being seen as the favored one, then you're not innocent either. The air left my lungs in a rush. Sensitive? He's 19. He's an adult. He's supposed to control himself. And you're 16. You're supposed to know better than to hit below the belt. We stood facing each other across the table, the tea gone cold between us. Outside, a car passed, horn blaring once, ordinary life moving on while ours stood still. Mom exhaled, rubbed her temple. I'm not choosing sides, Zara. I'm trying to keep this family from cracking apart. Adele will apologize. I'll make sure of it. But you need to think about your part too. Words can bruise deeper than hands sometimes. She reached out, almost touched my arm, then let her hand fall. Go get ready for school. We'll talk more tonight, when your father's home, all four of us. I didn't answer. I turned and walked upstairs, each step measured so I wouldn't run. In my room, I closed the door, leaned against it, and let the tears come again. Hot, angry, silent. The hoodie hood was still up. I pulled it tighter, hiding the bruise from myself in the mirror across the room. Downstairs, I heard Mom moving, water running, dishes clinking, the soft thud of the trash bin lid. Normal sounds again. But nothing felt normal. My brother had hit me. My mother had asked what I'd done to provoke it. And tonight, we were supposed to sit around the dinner table like a family and talk. I didn't know what words were left to say. I only knew that the crack I'd felt last night had widened overnight, and no amount of tea or frozen peas was going to seal it shut. School that day passed in a blur of half-heard lectures and averted eyes. I kept my hood up in the hallways, told my best friend Aisha the mark was from walking into a door. Cliché, but she didn't press, and sat in the back row during history so no one would notice the purple shadow creeping toward my eye. Every time someone laughed too loud or slammed a locker, I flinched, the sound echoing the crack from last night. By lunch, I couldn't eat. The sandwich Mom had packed sat untouched in my bag. Instead, I hid in the library corner, scrolling aimlessly on my phone until the bell rang. When I got home, the house smelled of frying onions and cumin. Mom making keema for dinner, the same recipe she'd used every Thursday since I could remember. Adele's shoes were by the door, laces untied. One tipped over like it had been kicked off in a hurry. He was in the living room, sprawled on the couch with his laptop balanced on his knees, earbuds in, watching something with explosions. He didn't look up when I walked past. I went straight to my room, dropped my bag, and shut the door harder than necessary. A few minutes later, a knock. Soft, hesitant. Zara? Adele's voice through the wood. I didn't answer. Another knock. Can we talk? I stayed silent. The knob turned. He pushed the door open a crack, enough to see his face, eyes red-rimmed, jaw tight. He looked smaller than usual, shoulders hunched. I'm sorry, he said quickly, before I could tell him to leave. I didn't mean to. I just lost it. I swear I've never wanted to hurt you. I sat on my bed, knees drawn up, staring at the floor. You did hurt me. I know. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Mom talked to me this morning. She said what I did was wrong, that there's no excuse. Did she? The words came out flat. She also said I must have said something really bad to make you do it. Adele winced. She asked me what happened before. I told her we were arguing about the remote, that you said I always get my way because I'm the son, that everyone treats me like the golden child. I told her I got angry because it's not true, not completely, but it stings when you say it like that. Like I'm spoiled, like I don't work hard to. I looked up at him then. So you hit me because your feelings got hurt? No. He rubbed his face with both hands. I hit you because I was mad, and I didn't stop myself. That's on me. Not you. I'm sorry, Zara. Really? His voice cracked on the last word. For a second, I almost believed him. The same brother who'd helped me with math homework at midnight, who'd driven me to school when I missed the bus, who'd once punched a kid in 8th grade for calling me names. But the memory of his palm flashing across my face was louder. You've never hit anyone else, I said quietly. Not once. Why me? Adele sank onto the edge of my desk chair, elbows on his knees. Because you're safe. Your family. I knew you wouldn't leave me. I knew Mom would understand, or at least try to. The admission hung between us, ugly and honest. That doesn't make it okay, I told him. It makes it worse. He nodded, eyes on the carpet. I know. I hate that I did it. I keep replaying it, and I want to take it back so bad. Silence settled again, thick and uncomfortable. Downstairs, Mom called that dinner was ready. Adele stood. I'll tell Dad everything tonight. The whole thing. No excuses. And if you want me to stay out of your way for a while, I will. Just don't hate me forever. Please. He waited for an answer I didn't give. After a moment, he left, door clicking softly behind him. I stayed where I was until the smell of keema drifted up the stairs, until I heard the clink of plates and the low murmur of voices. Mom's calm, Dad's deeper tone, asking how everyone's day was. I didn't go down. Instead, I texted Aisha. Can I crash at your place tonight? Her reply came fast. Of course. What's wrong? Family stuff. I'll explain later. I packed a small bag, pajamas, charger, toothbrush, slipped downstairs while they were eating, and left through the side door without saying goodbye. The walk to Aisha's was 20 minutes. The evening air was cool against my bruised cheek. When I got there, she opened the door before I knocked, pulled me inside, and hugged me without asking questions yet. Her mom made me tea with extra cardamom, the way I liked it, and didn't pry. We sat in her room later, cross-legged on her bed, and I told her everything. The slap, Mom's questions, Adele's apology that felt too late. Aisha listened, eyes wide then furious. Your mom blamed you? Not exactly, but she didn't blame him either. Not really, Aisha shook her head. That's messed up. He's the one who hit you. He's the adult. He's supposed to be the one protecting you, not the other way around. I nodded, throat tight. I don't know what to do now. I can't go home and pretend it's fine. Then don't. Stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure it out. You're not alone in this. She squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. For the first time since the slap, the weight on my chest eased, just a fraction. Outside Aisha's window, the streetlights flickered on, one by one. Somewhere across town, my family was finishing dinner without me, probably wondering where I'd gone. I didn't text them. I didn't call. I let the silence stretch, let them feel the empty chair at the table. And for once, it didn't feel like running away. It felt like drawing a line. Aisha's mom let me stay the night without a single question beyond, are you safe? When I nodded, she simply added an extra blanket to the guest bed and left a glass of warm milk on the nightstand. In the dark, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles, listening to Aisha's soft breathing from the twin bed across the room. For the first time since the slap, I felt held, not fixed, not judged, just held. My phone had buzzed twice on silent. One text from Mom, where are you? Call me. And one from Adele, please come home. I'm sorry, I didn't reply to either. Morning came with the smell of parathas frying downstairs. Asha's mom knocked gently, set a plate outside the door, and whispered, eat something, Beta, no rush. We ate in her room, cross-legged on the floor, sauce dripping onto paper towels. Asha watched me carefully. You going back today? I don't know. I tore a piece of paratha, dipped it in yogurt. I don't think I can sit at that table and pretend last night didn't happen. Then don't pretend. Go home, and say it out loud. All of it. And if they twist it again, then you leave again. You have a place here. My mom already said you can stay as long as you need. The offer settled over me like a warm coat. I finished eating, showered, borrowed one of Aisha's oversized sweaters to cover most of the fading bruise, and walked home. The front door was unlocked. Mom never locked it during the day. Inside, the house felt too still. Dad's work bag was gone. He must have left early again. Mom was in the kitchen, folding laundry at the table, stacks of towels and shirts rising around her like small forts. Adele sat at the far end, head in his hands, untouched cup of tea in front of him. They both looked up when I walked in. Mom's face went through a quick sequence, relief, worry, something sharper, before settling into careful neutrality. You're back? I needed space. I stayed near the doorway, bag still on my shoulder. Adele lifted his head. His eyes were swollen like he hadn't slept either. Zara, I'm so sorry. I told Dad everything this morning, before he left for work. I glanced at Mom. She nodded once. He did. Your father was upset. He wants to talk to both of you tonight. Upset at who? The question came out quiet but pointed. Mom hesitated. At the situation. At Adele for losing control. At me for not seeing how bad things had gotten between you two. Adele spoke before I could respond. I told him I hit you. No excuses. I told him I deserved whatever punishment he gives. Punishment? I echoed. This isn't about grounding or taking away the car. You hit me, Adele. You can't just apologize and make it disappear. I know. His voice cracked. I don't expect it to disappear. I just want you to know I hate myself for it. Mom stood, smoothing her dupatta. Sit, Zara, please. I didn't move. I'm not sitting until we're clear on something. Last night you asked what I did to make him angry. You asked again this morning. You're still asking why he snapped, instead of starting with the fact that he shouldn't have snapped at all. Mom's shoulders dropped a fraction. I was trying to understand so I could prevent it next time. There shouldn't be a next time. My voice rose despite my effort to keep it steady. And the only way to prevent it is to make him responsible for his own hands, not to make me responsible for his temper. Adele nodded slowly. She's right, Mom. It's on me. Not her words, not the fight. Me. Mom looked between us. Then at the laundry she'd been folding like it could anchor her. I raised you both to be close, to look out for each other. When I saw the bruise, I panicked. I thought if I could find the trigger, I could fix it before it happened again. I didn't want to believe my son could do that. But he did, I said softly. And you looked at me first. Silence fell, heavy and complete. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once, sharp and distant. Mom finally spoke, voice low. I was wrong. I should have held him accountable right away. I should have held you first. I'm sorry, Zara. The apology hung there, simple, unadorned. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but the beginning of space where forgiveness might grow. Adele pushed his chair back. I'm moving to the basement for a while. I'll stay out of your way until you're ready to talk. Or never. Whatever you need. He stood, looked at me one more time, eyes pleading but resigned, then walked past me toward the stairs. When his footsteps faded, Mom stepped closer. Your father will be home at 6. We'll sit together. No one leaves the table until we've said everything that needs saying. I nodded once. Okay. She reached out, hesitated, then gently touched my arm. I love you, both of you, even when I get it wrong. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. I know. I went upstairs to my room, closed the door, and sat on the bed with my back against the headboard. The bruise on my cheek had deepened to a mottled green at the edges, but the swelling was down. I touched it lightly, no longer flinching. Downstairs, the house was quiet again, laundry folded, tea cold, a family holding its breath, waiting for evening to decide whether it would break or begin to mend. I didn't know which way it would go, but for the first time, I felt like I had a voice in the outcome, not just a bruise to show for it. Dad came home at exactly 6:15, the way he always did on Thursdays. Keys jingling in the lock, briefcase set down by the coat rack with a soft thud, shoes kicked off in the foyer. I heard him call out, Assalamu alaikum, from the hallway. Heard Mom answer, Wa alaikum assalam, from the kitchen, her voice quieter than usual. I stayed in my room until he knocked on my door, gentle but firm. Zara, come downstairs, Beta. We need to talk. His tone held none of the usual warmth, only a steady gravity that made my stomach twist. I followed him to the living room. Mom sat on one end of the sofa, hands folded in her lap. Adele was in the armchair across from her, elbows on his knees, staring at the carpet. Dad took the other end of the sofa, leaving the middle cushion empty, like a deliberate space between sides. I sat on the ottoman instead, closer to the door, farther from everyone. No one spoke for a long moment. The wall clock ticked. Outside, a motorcycle roared past, then faded. Dad broke the silence first. Adele told me what happened. All of it. His eyes moved to my face, lingered on the bruise that had now turned a sickly yellow-green at the edges. His jaw tightened visibly. I'm sorry you were hurt, Zara. No child of mine should ever have to fear the other. Adele flinched at the words but didn't look up. Dad turned to him. You raised your hand to your sister. You crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed with words alone. Do you understand that? Yes, Baba. Adele's voice was barely above a whisper. I understand. Dad exhaled through his nose. Then explain it to me. Why? Adele lifted his head at last. I was angry. She said things that hit a sore spot, about me being favored, about always getting my way. It felt like she was saying, I don't deserve anything I've worked for. I snapped. I didn't think. I just hit her. Dad's gaze didn't waver. And you thought hitting would make the words stop hurting? No. Adele's eyes filled. I wasn't thinking at all. I regret it more than anything I've ever done. Dad nodded once, slow. Then he looked at Mom. And you, Salma. You saw the mark on her face last night. What did you do? Mom swallowed. I asked what happened. I asked Zara what she said before. I wanted to know the full story so I could address both sides. Both sides, Dad repeated. One side used words, the other used force. And you started by questioning the words. Mom's hands tightened in her lap. I was afraid. Afraid this would break everything we've built. I thought if I could find the spark, I could put it out before it burned the house down. Dad leaned forward. The spark doesn't justify the fire. Adele is responsible for his actions. Full stop. You should have told him that immediately. Instead, you asked Zara what she did to provoke him. Mom's eyes glistened. I know I was wrong. I told her I was sorry this morning. Dad looked back at me. Zara, do you accept her apology? I met his eyes. I heard it. I'm still deciding if I believe it. He nodded, no judgment in the motion. Fair. Then to Adele, you will not be in this house the same way for a while. You'll move your things to the guest room downstairs. No TV in the living room after dinner, unless Zara says it's okay. No driving the car unless it's for school or work, and you ask permission from me first. You will speak to a counselor, someone outside the family, starting next week. I've already made the appointment. Adele nodded quickly. Okay, Dad continued. And every evening for the next month, you will sit with your sister for 15 minutes. No phones, no distractions, and listen if she wants to talk, or sit in silence if she doesn't. You will not defend yourself during that time. You will only listen. Adele's throat worked. I'll do it. Dad finally turned to me fully. Zara, you have a voice in this house. Always. If you need space, take it. If you need to stay with Aisha again, tell us. If you want to talk to someone outside the family too, we'll arrange it. No one will pressure you to forgive before you're ready. The room felt smaller after he finished, the air thick with everything said and everything still waiting to be said. Mom spoke then, voice soft. I should have protected you first. I failed at that. I'm sorry, Zara, truly. I looked at her, really looked. The lines around her eyes were deeper tonight, her shoulders rounded like she carried something heavier than laundry. I needed you to be angry for me, I said. Not at me. I know. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I was angry. At him. At myself. I just didn't show it the right way. Adele looked at me then, eyes pleading but quiet. I'll sit with you every night. I'll listen. I won't ask for forgiveness until you give it, if you ever do. I didn't answer. Dad stood. Dinner's ready. We eat together tonight. No one skips. After that, Adele, you move your things. Zara, if you want to eat in your room, you can. No one will force you. I stayed on the ottoman while they moved to the dining table. The clink of plates, the soft murmur of Dad asking Mom to pass the rice. It all sounded normal, but nothing was. After a minute, I stood and joined them. Not because I forgave, not because I wanted to pretend, but because I wanted to see if the table could still hold us, all of us, bruised and cracked but still sitting together. We ate mostly in silence. Adele kept his eyes down. Mom served extra keema onto my plate without asking. Dad watched us all like a man measuring the distance between fault lines. When the plates were cleared, Adele stood first. I'll start moving my stuff. He paused at the doorway, looked back at me. Thank you for coming down. I didn't reply. He left. Mom cleared the table. Dad touched my shoulder lightly before following her to the kitchen. I stayed at the table alone for a long time, staring at the empty chairs, the half-full water glasses, the crumbs on the cloth. The bruise on my cheek throbbed faintly, a reminder that had already started to fade on the outside, while something else inside refused to heal quickly. Tonight we had spoken the truth, at least some of it. Tomorrow we would try again, and the day after. Not because it was easy, but because staying silent had already cost us too much. The first evening of the new arrangement arrived like a scheduled appointment no one wanted to keep. Dinner ended early, leftover keema reheated, rice scooped in silence, plates cleared without the usual chatter about school or work. Dad pushed back his chair at 7 sharp. Adele, Zara's room. 15 minutes, door open. Adele stood without protest, shoulders squared but eyes down. I led the way upstairs, heart thudding too loud in my ears. In my room, I sat on the desk chair, back to the window. He took the edge of my bed, far enough that we weren't close enough that we couldn't pretend the other wasn't there. The door stayed wide. Hallway light spilled in a long rectangle across the carpet. Neither of us spoke for the first 3 minutes. I counted them in my head. Adele stared at his hands, thumbs rubbing slow circles over his knuckles. Finally, he broke the quiet. I don't expect you to say anything tonight, or ever if you don't want to. I just wanted you to know I'm here, like Baba said. I nodded once, barely. The bruise on my cheek had faded to a faint shadow now, easy to cover with concealer for school, but I hadn't bothered today. Let it show. Let him see it every time he looked at me. You can talk if you want, he added softly. Or yell, or tell me to leave early, whatever. I looked at him then. Really looked. His face was thinner than it had been a week ago, dark circles under his eyes, the same eyes that used to crinkle when he teased me about my terrible taste in music. Why did you believe Mom when she asked what I did? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Adele exhaled. Because it was easier. If it was something you said, if I could tell myself your words pushed me over the edge, then I wasn't the monster. I was just reacting, like always. He paused. But that's bullshit. You could have called me every name in the book. I still shouldn't have touched you. The honesty landed heavy. I swallowed. She made it sound like I hunted for your weak spot on purpose. Like I wanted to hurt you enough to make you hit me. Adil shook his head fast. That's not what happened. You were angry. I was angry. I lost control. End of story. Another stretch of silence. The hallway clock chimed the quarter hour. You're moving downstairs permanently? I asked. Until you tell me I can come back up. Or until Baba says otherwise. He rubbed his face. I hate the basement. It's cold and smells like old paint. but I deserve it. I didn't argue. Good, he nodded, accepting the word like a sentence. 5 more minutes passed. I watched dust motes drift in the hallway light. I keep thinking about when we were kids, he said quietly. You were 6. I was 9. That time you fell off your bike and skinned your knee so bad it bled through your sock. I carried you home on my back the whole way. You kept saying sorry for being heavy. I told you to shut up and hold on tighter. I remembered. The memory stung now, sharp contrast to the hand that had struck instead of carried. I would still carry you, he whispered, if you ever needed it again. Tears pricked my eyes. I blinked them back. I don't need carrying. I need to know it won't happen again. It won't. His voice cracked on the promise. I swear on everything. I'm getting help. The counselor's on Tuesday. I already called to confirm. I studied him. What do you talk about there? How angry I get sometimes. How I bottle it until it explodes. How scared I am that I'm becoming someone I don't recognize. He looked up at me. How much I hate that I hurt you. The 15 minutes ended with a soft chime from downstairs. Dad's signal. Adele stood slowly. Thank you for letting me sit here. He paused at the door. If you ever want me to leave sooner, just say it. I will. He left without waiting for an answer. I stayed in the chair long after his footsteps faded down the stairs. The room felt larger without him in it. Emptier, but also safer. Later that night, I heard him moving boxes in the basement, the dull thump of things being set down, the creak of the old daybed as he made it up. Mom came upstairs once, hovered outside my door, then left without knocking. Dad knocked once, just to say goodnight. You did well tonight, he said through the wood. You spoke your truth. I didn't answer, but I felt the words settle somewhere deep. The next evening, Adele came again. Same chair, same bed edge, same open door. This time, I spoke first. Tell me what the counselor said. He did, haltingly at first, then steadier. Breathing exercises. Triggers. How anger felt like pressure in his chest, until it had nowhere to go but out. He didn't ask for sympathy. He just reported, like it was homework he had to complete. I listened. I didn't forgive him that night, or the next, but I started to hear him. Not just the apology, but the person behind it, the one who was trying clumsily to rebuild what he'd broken. On the 5th night I asked, do you still think it was partly my fault? He shook his head immediately. No, not even a little. My hand, my choice, my consequence. The answer was simple, clean. For the first time, it didn't feel like he was dodging. I nodded once. Okay. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. We sat in silence for the rest of the 15 minutes. Not awkward, not tense, just quiet. When the chime came, he stood. Thank you for listening tonight. He left. I stayed. The bruise was almost gone now. Just a faint discoloration if you knew where to look. The deeper marks were slower to fade, but they were starting to feel less raw. Not healed, not yet, but less like open wounds. Downstairs, the house moved on, dishes clinking, TV murmuring low, Mom and Dad speaking in soft tones. Up here, in the small space between my desk chair and my bed, something new was growing. Not trust, not completely, but the possibility of it. One 15-minute evening at a time. The 15th night felt different. Not easier, but less like walking into a room full of broken glass. Adele arrived at 7:15, as always, knocked once on the open door, waited for my quiet come in, then took his place on the bed's edge. I had moved the desk chair closer this time, so we weren't separated by the full width of the room. He noticed, but didn't comment. We sat in the usual silence for the first few minutes, the hallway light painting stripes across his face. Tonight he looked less haunted. Still tired, but the dark circles under his eyes had softened. The counselor sessions were helping, he'd said last week. Breathing techniques, journaling, naming the feeling before it named him. I hadn't asked for details since then. He hadn't offered. But tonight he spoke first. The counselor asked me something yesterday. She said, if Zara never forgives you, what will you do with that? I stayed quiet, waiting. I told her I'd carry it, that it would be the price I paid for what I did, and that I'd keep showing up every night until she told me to stop, even if it took years. He looked at me then, direct, no flinching. I meant it. Something shifted in my chest, small, careful, like a door creaking open after being locked too long. You think forgiveness has a deadline? I asked. No. I think it's yours to give when, or if you're ready. I'm not here to rush it. I'm here because I broke something, and I want to be part of fixing it, even if fixing means just sitting here quietly for the rest of our lives. The words were simple, stripped of excuses. No, but you said, no, I was angry. Just ownership. I exhaled slowly. I've been thinking about that bike story you told me the other night, when you carried me home. He nodded once. I remember. I was bleeding. You didn't complain once, you just kept walking. My voice stayed steady. That version of you, I trusted that version, completely. Adele's eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. I want to be that person again. For you. For all of us. I studied the carpet between us. I don't know if I can forget what happened. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You don't have to forget. You just have to decide if you can live with the memory and still let me be your brother. The question hung there, honest, no pressure, behind it. I felt the weight of the last 3 weeks settle differently. Not lighter, but redistributed, no longer crushing me alone. Mom's been trying, I said after a pause. She checks on me every morning now. Asks how I slept. Doesn't mention the bruise anymore, but she looks at it like it hurts her too. Adele nodded. She cries sometimes when she thinks no one's watching. I heard her in the kitchen last week. Dad's harder on you than on her, I noted. He should be. I'm the one who hit you. Another stretch of quiet. The clock downstairs chimed the half hour. We still had time. I told Aisha everything, I said. She wanted me to press charges. Said you're an adult. You should face adult consequences. Adele swallowed. If that's what you need, I'll do it. I won't fight it. I shook my head. I don't want that. I just wanted someone outside this house to be angry for me. She was. Good, he said softly. You deserved that. The 15 minutes ended with the chime. Adele stood, slower than usual. Thank you for talking tonight. He paused at the door. If you ever want to skip a night, or shorten it, or anything, just say. I looked up at him. I don't want to skip. The admission surprised us both. His eyes widened slightly, then softened. Okay, he left quietly. I stayed in the chair a long time after, listening to him descend the stairs, hearing the faint creak of the basement door. Downstairs, Mom and Dad were watching a drama serial, low volume, familiar music drifting up. Normal sounds. But tonight they didn't feel like a lie. When I finally went down for water, Mom was alone in the kitchen, wiping the counters, even though they were already clean. She looked up when I entered. He's trying, she said quietly. I know. So are you. I filled a glass, drank half. I'm trying to believe the trying. She nodded, eyes bright. That's enough for now. I set the glass in the sink. I'm not ready to hug you yet. I know, she smiled, small, sad, hopeful. But you're here, talking. That's more than I hoped for a week ago. I didn't answer, but I didn't leave right away either. We stood in the kitchen together, the refrigerator humming softly between us. No rush, no pressure. Just two people breathing the same air after weeks of holding it. Upstairs, my room waited, desk chair still pulled close to the bed, hallway light still on. Tomorrow Adele would come again. 15 minutes. Maybe more words. Maybe silence. Either way, he would show up. And so would I. Not because everything was fixed. Not because the memory had faded. But because we were both choosing, slowly, deliberately, to stay in the same house, under the same roof, trying to rebuild what one moment had cracked. It wasn't forgiveness yet. It was presence. And for tonight, that was enough. The 30th night arrived without fanfare. No special date, no milestone marked on the calendar. Adele knocked at 7:15, as he had every evening for the past month, waited for my soft come in, and took his usual spot on the bed's edge. I had pulled the desk chair even closer this time, so our knees almost touched if either of us leaned forward. The door stayed open, the hallway light still spilled in, but tonight the silence between us felt less like a wall and more like shared breathing room. Adele looked different. Still careful, still watchful, but the hunch in his shoulders had eased. The counselor sessions had become twice weekly. He'd mentioned it casually last week. No pride, no plea for approval, just fact. I hadn't asked for updates since then. Tonight, I spoke first. The bruise is gone. I touched my cheek where the mark had finally faded completely. No one at school asks anymore. He nodded slowly. I still see it every time I look at you, even when it's not there. The admission was quiet, matter of fact, no drama, no fishing for reassurance. I studied his face. The same face that had once grinned at my terrible jokes, that had helped me sneak extra dessert when Mom wasn't looking. I don't flinch when you walk past me in the hallway anymore, I said. That's something. His eyes met mine, surprised, then grateful. That's a lot. We sat with that for a minute. Downstairs, the TV murmured low. Dad watching cricket highlights, Mom folding the last of the laundry. Ordinary sounds. Familiar. But tonight, they didn't grate. Adele shifted slightly. The counselor asked if I wanted to talk about what happens after the month is up. I told her it's not my decision, it's yours. I exhaled through my nose. I've been thinking about that too. Another pause. The clock downstairs chimed the half hour. We still had time. I don't want to keep doing this forever, I said. The 15 minutes, the open door, the scheduled guilt. He nodded once. I understand. But I also don't want to pretend it never happened. I don't want to go back to the way it was, fighting over stupid things, saying mean words because we're siblings and we can, then acting like nothing sticks. Adele leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Then tell me what you do want. I looked at him, really looked, and felt the last knot in my chest loosen. I want to trust you again, not overnight. Not because time passed, but because you keep showing up as the person who won't hurt me. Even when I'm angry, even when I say things that sting. His throat worked. I want that too. More than anything. So here's what I'm thinking, I continued. We stop the scheduled sessions after tonight. No more timer, no mandatory 15 minutes. But if I need to talk, or if I need space, you respect it. No pushing. No defending. And if I ever feel unsafe again, even for a second, I tell Dad first. Not you, not Mom, Dad. And we start over from whatever consequence he sets. Adele's eyes never left mine. I accept that. All of it. And one more thing. I paused, gathering the words. I forgive you. The sentence landed, soft but solid. His breath caught. Tears welled instantly, spilling over before he could stop them. He didn't wipe them away, just let them fall. Thank you, he whispered. I don't deserve it yet, but thank you. You don't have to deserve it, I said. You just have to keep earning it. Every day. The same way I have to keep choosing to believe you will. He nodded. Throat too tight for more words. We sat in the quiet after that, Not the heavy silence of the first nights, but a lighter one, shared, healing. When the usual chime came from downstairs, neither of us moved right away. Adele finally stood, slow. I'm going to stay in the basement a while longer, until it feels right to come back up. If that's okay, it's okay. He paused at the door, hand on the frame. Can I hug you, or is that too soon? I stood too, walked the few steps between us, and hugged him, tight, fierce, the way we used to when we were small and the world was simpler. He hugged back carefully, like he was afraid of breaking something fragile. When we pulled apart, his face was wet, but he smiled. Small, real. Good night, Zara. Good night, Adele. He left. I stayed in the doorway, watching him descend the stairs, hearing the soft click of the basement door. Downstairs, Mom turned off the TV. Dad's footsteps moved toward the kitchen. I went down too, not hiding, not rushing. Mom looked up when I entered. Everything okay? Yeah, I said. We talked. I forgave him. Her eyes filled instantly. She crossed the room and stopped a foot away. Can I? I nodded. She hugged me, gentle, warm, smelling of laundry soap and cardamom. Dad joined us, arms around both of us. No one spoke for a long minute. When we separated, Mom wiped her eyes. We're going to be okay. We are, I said. And for the first time in weeks, I believed it. Later that night, I lay in bed, window open to the cool November air, listening to the house settle. No footsteps in the hallway. No tension humming through the walls. Just quiet, peaceful. Not perfect, not erased, but mended. Cracks still visible, but filled with something stronger than before. Forgiveness. Trust rebuilt one careful step at a time. And tomorrow, when Adele came upstairs for breakfast, I would look at him and see my brother again. Not the hand that had struck, but the one that had once carried me home. The bruise was gone. The family was still here. And that, after everything, felt like enough.